And by the way, I'm not saying that my material is going to be that interesting in 2,000 years. I'm not that egotistical.
Oh, don't sell yourself short, Phil.
But it will be.
But right now, for example, this one particular library where they are literally going bookless. If you have, a kid who goes to school who doesn't have the internet at home, oddly enough, there are kids who don't have computers or the internet at home still. In rural areas or even in city areas where people, might not be able to afford it. Are they only going to be able to read it at school? I think now, it's too soon, I think, right now, to completely eliminate the Dead Tree books. That's my opinion. But
I agree wholeheartedly. In my opinion, for that to happen, then you're stepping into the territory where, okay, well then schools are going to have to find some way to fund either providing some kind of computer or laptop for each student or some kind of e-reader like the Kindle for each student so that they can have access to the stuff that they need. That's just, it's not realistic right now.
And you're going to have to wait for the old guys like me to die off because I love holding it in my hand. I love smelling it. I love looking at and turning the pages. I can't help it. I'm an old coot.
We love you, Phil. Well, it looks like we've got another caller here. Let's take this call and see what the question is here. Alrighty. Caller, you're on the air. What's your name and what's your question here for Book Chatter?
Hey there, Stacy. Everybody, it's your pal, Amy Rogers.
Hi, Amy. We've got somebody from from the library into the spectrum here to wage in on this.
Yeah, I guess I have to reveal myself to be a library person, although I'm not a librarian. I don't have so much a question as a comment to make, and this may have been said already, if so, please forgive me. I've had a little trouble getting online with you guys, but it bothers me that if we go to this whole digital world, not that we lose anything per se in the content of books as we know them. We lose lots of things, as the last speaker noted rightly. You lose the tactile sensation and so forth. The thing that concerns me is that I don't want to have to rely on a third-party provider to get my content. And, for example, if I purchase a digital book from some online provider and they decide as, I don't know if it was Amazon or Google Books or someone recently decided that they had incorrectly released to the public that digital product, then they had to come then they come and delete it off my reader. I'm sorry, I don't want to have to continue to renegotiate my access to something that I've purchased, especially not when that access has to be electronic, digital, battery-powered. I don't know about you guys. I live in a place where we get ice storms, hurricanes, and such. When the power goes out, I want to read a book. I want to. So, it's the same thing with music, saying that, well, I'll stop here because I'm about to go off on a tangent.
We love you. We love your tangents.
I have that same concern about requiring electricity, batteries, some other kind of power or juice to access your content.
I think that's a big fear now with everything that's going on with the economy. I work in a bank, and every single day I wait on a customer that's like absolutely terrified that everything is going to shut down tomorrow and then we're not going to have access to anything. I can't even tell you how many people try to warn me. They're like, do you have enough tuna safes at home? You should have canned goods and paper products. You need to store up. I'm like, one roll of paper towels will be fine. But I think that is it. I think that a lot of people do feel that way, and I think that the media has a lot to do with it because everything's always just so doomy. It's just it's always the end of the world. But there's always a party that just kind of thinks, well, what if? What if this would happen? And I think it's a fear of loss of control.
Mm-hmm,
Well
absolutely.
done. Well said. I write code. My job is programming. My hobby is doing lino prints because I think printmaking is the only thing I have actual control over.
Well, I know the other day Google fried out, and I didn't have access to my email for about 3 hours, and I thought my world was ending. And so I think that's a good point. If the power goes out or whatever, what have you. I mean, if there is some sort of catastrophic, online catastrophe, and you don't have your books, and I think that's not a completely unrealistic fear. To a degree, to be able to have something physically with you.
And the uniform's going to make a great comeback.
You have the same kind of problems with regular paperbacks or hardbacks, whatever, your Dead Tree books. You have a fire one night. You lost everything, but I guarantee you, my Kindle's going out the door with me, so I've got everything on it. Wow. Wow. Probably should hang up so another caller can get in the queue. Thanks for your comments. I'll keep listening online.
Thank you very much, Amy. And feel free to call back if you have another comment or if we do say something that kind of lights a fire under you there. I want to remind folks that they can call in. The call-in number here on Book Chatter tonight is 914-803-4571. We have our invited panelists, Holly Christine, RJ Keller, and Jamie Lynn Brazell with us. And we are accepting calls. We've been talking a little bit about a couple of articles that appeared both in CNN.com today and in the Boston Globe as well. But I kind of want to change things around a little bit and talk about, to some degree, what role will bookstores play in this future? And my heart is definitely with the independent booksellers out there, the folks who literally live and die by the success of how well books sell. And I'm concerned for them in this sort of digitalized move that we are seeing a lot of publishers and writers moving towards. So I'd love to get your thoughts on that aspect of it as well. What will be the role of booksellers in the future? RJ.
Well, I think I've seen different models online about, I wish I remember what it's called, an espresso, one of those that it'll print out a book. You go and you type in the title of the book and it'll print it out for you, like print on demand. Yeah. Book, I suppose, which I think that could help them out tremendously. I think it would open up their source of supplies and their what they have on the shelves. They don't have to necessarily depend on that. You may, I suppose, find some sort of device where you could plug in your Kindle or whatever and have a book downloaded. But I really think more people would depend on, online sales for that, to be honest. And so I'm with you. I think it's definitely a problem. I think that espresso machine would be, I believe that's what it's called, probably be their saving grace, if anything, to be honest.
What are your thoughts, Jamie Lynn?
Yeah, I definitely see this being a problem for them in future. I feel for them because they really needed to rethink their business models for quite a while now, actually. And I think I've actually seen the same article that RJ did about the espresso machine, and it really is probably one of the only ways they're going to be able to survive in this kind of a market where online retailers are playing such a huge role nowadays, not only in books but in everything else as well. And, another thing they may want to think about is, some of them have already started incorporating the coffee shop kind of atmosphere into their bookstores anyway, and they may want to branch out with that as well, and again, having maybe terminals where you could plug in your reader and download whatever book you need to, especially if you may not have wireless access or whatever where you live.
Looks like we've got another caller on the line here. Let me go ahead and see if I can tap into this call. Go ahead, caller. What's your name and what's your question or comment?
My name is Jim Chambers from Tucker, Georgia, and I have a brief comment and then a question for RJ.
Hi, Jim.
Hey, RJ. Never talked to a world-famous author before.
Well, you still haven't.
Well, that.
Yeah, I disagree. But anyway,
They do.
this pro and con over digital books, I mean, there's a lot of issues involved, and they're not going to go away overnight. But still, technology generally rules. You could go back 100 years, and there were people that made a lot of money making saddles and horse-drawn buggies and things. And they had to adapt or go out of business. Some of them adapted, like Fisher Body, and some of them didn't, and they went out of business. Only a few years ago, there were stores on every corner that sold camera film and developed and printed pictures.
Mm-hmm.
They've adapted. Some of them to the digital printing now, and some of them have gone away. But it's just something it's part of life. You can't roll the technology back in bookstores as much as I love going in a bookstore. They're going to have to adapt, and they're going to play a smaller role. What I'm optimistic about is that I know it's been depressing for years to see these surveys come out every year that says fewer people read recreationally every year, and hopefully the ease and maybe the novelty of digital books will reverse that trend, and people will see what they're missing. And now I'm taking up so much time on this quick question, RJ, because I'm an old guy and it's way past my bedtime and my brain's shutting down. RJ, you said in the book you work at a convenience store in Central Maine. Do you still work there?
I do. Yes.
Well, one day they need to put up one of these historic markers. Best-selling author R.J. Keller started here.
Well, thank you very much for that.
I love your book. It's one of the best books I've read in years.
Oh, well, thank you. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
And I'm going to get off and probably start sleeping now. Thank you.
Okay,
Well, thanks for calling in.
yes, thank you, Jim, for calling in.
Bye.
And that's Jim from Georgia. Thank you for the call.
Yeah, he's from the Kindle board.
I see.
Oh, okay.
Well, I do want to remind folks that they can call in to our show here at 914-803-4571. Tonight's panelists are Holly Christine, R.J. Keller, and Jamie Lynn Brazel. And we've been talking.
Can I add in?
And Phil, tell me your last name again.
Persinger. I am in I grew up in your area code. I grew up in Dobbs Ferry.
Very nice. So we've got.
I want to talk about art. I want to take it out of context and go into art. And the reason why I like POD, the reason why I like the new technology is because I grew up, I painted, I played bassoon badly and a couple other things. But the nice thing about POD is I never expected anyone to paint for my paintbrushes, paint for my paint for my canvas. I came up with my own tools, and so once I had an agent, and it was awful, and I fired her, I was in heaven that I could go to iUniverse. Yeah, they have problems, but I could go there, buy my tools, make my book, get it out there, win my awards because I had control over the medium. I like that a lot.
Well, Phil, I think it's a great point. Maybe we can carry on the discussion about that next week. I want to thank you for calling in. You always have such fresh insights, and you
Okay. I'm out of here. Okay, I'm out.
Peace up, man. It looks like we have another caller on the line here.
Ciao, baby.
Have a good night, Phil. If I can figure out how to do this thing without blowing everything up here.
Hello?
All right, caller, you are on the air here at Book Chatter. What's your name and what's your question for our panelists or a comment?
Hello, is it me?
It's you.
Oh, right. Thank you very much. My name's Nigel, and I'm a huge fan of Holly Christine's work. I'm extremely excited to be on the program tonight. Holly, I just absolutely love your book, 9 Lives of Clemenza. Fabulous work.
Oh, thank you, Nigel.
Well, thank you very much, and I wanted to ask you, where did you get the idea? It's fantastic.
I got the idea from my dog a little bit. I wasn't able to read.
Clemenza, right?
Clemenza, that's right. I wasn't ever able to read whenever she was a puppy, so I was stuck in the tub, reading in the bathtub without any water, and the sink faucet started leaking, and I kept thinking how odd it would be to be that little droplet of water and looking at this scene of life, this human being in a bathtub, fully clothed, and this dog just staring at her. So I kind of took the concept from there.
That's marvelous. See, we don't have that where I come from. Where I come from, we actually turn the water on when we take a bath. That's what I love about America. You do everything differently.
Yes, it's very backwards.
Seriously, it's a wonderful idea, and I really hope that the book takes off. It shows your imagination. It's absolutely fantastic. Love it.
Oh, thank you so much, Nigel.
My pleasure. Thank you. I'm going to get off the line now because I know there's probably lots of other callers who want to call in, but I had to call in and express my appreciation for your work, and fantastic show, Stacy. Love the show. Keep up the great work.
Thank you very much, Nigel.
Thanks, Nigel.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Well, it seems like we've got some questions about the work, so let's shift gears towards that a little bit. Jamie Lynn, you're being a little bit quiet tonight, and you're the newcomer here, so we should go ahead and get you talking a little bit about your book, Declaring Spinsterhood. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Tell us a little bit about the book.
Okay, well, the book is about a 30-year-old woman who has just basically picked up the pieces of her life after having gone through a horrible breakup, and she's basically left her current career path and just basically started completely over, running her own little bookstore and everything. And at this time, of course, she's single. Her mother is on her all the time to get married, have children, give me some grandkids, all this kind of stuff. And she's just not ready at that point, and finally has had enough after all of the ribbing and everything that she takes, and just tells them, you know what, I'm just going to be an old maid. You people leave me alone. And, of course, they don't do that. So, lots of fun ensues there after family and everybody else trying to set her up and so on and so forth.
Well, it just sounds like a fantastic story, and one I'm sure a lot of our audience can identify with. What has been...
Exactly.
What has been the response from readers to it?
Well, the response has been absolutely almost all positive. In fact, I've only had one person who did not like the book, and I was kind of thinking he might have taken it more seriously than I intended because, it is absolutely meant to be a fun, lighthearted kind of read. It's not supposed to be this huge undertaking in character development, and I think that may have been what he was expecting. But anyway, the feedback has just been absolutely fantastic, and everybody just says, once I started, I can't put it down. So I've been very pleased.
Very cool. And the book is titled Declaring Spinsterhood. If anybody wants to check it out, it is available on Amazon Kindle. At the Amazon store. Do you have a print version of the book available as well, Jamie Lynn?
Yeah, I do have a paperback version that is also available on Amazon as well.
Very cool. Now, our other panelists tonight are Holly Christine and R.J. Keller. Holly, tell us a little bit about the 9 Lives of Clemenza.
The 9 Lives of Clemenza is a spiritual novel about reincarnation, but it kind of explores the possibility that we're able to choose the forms that our life will take, and exploring the possibility that absolutely everything around us is alive, and not only that it's alive, but that it has a soul. And I also wrote a book called Retail Ready, and that takes it's a satirical look at working in retail and one absolutely terrible work week. Which pretty much happens like every single week for me, so. Oh, I hear you.
And RJ, your book is Waiting for Spring, is that right?
Yes.
Tell our viewers and listeners a little bit about Waiting for Spring.
Waiting for Spring, it takes place in Maine. I always say that first because I'm very proud that I really feel it reflects Maine and Mainers very accurately. It's sort of an anti-chick lit book. It was written sort of in response to my frustration of only being able to find those type of urban books. It's a very rural book. It's about a woman who is starting her life over, and instead of getting rid of the problems that she left with, she discovers they followed her, and then she also, unfortunately, finds other problems as well. It deals with kind of meaty issues, drug abuse, domestic violence, abortion. It's a very gritty book.
Sounds like a great read. I want to remind folks that the guests are Holly Christine. Her books are Retail Ready and The 9 Lives of Clemenza. And the other panelist is R.J. Keller, who you've just been hearing from, and her book is Waiting for Spring. And Jamie Lynn Brazel is the author of Declaring Spinsterhood. If you have any questions and you want to call in, our call-in number, of course, is 914-803-4571. We've got about 30 minutes left here. I want to remind folks that next Friday, we are already putting together a good show for next Friday, but we will be moving to our 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, so you won't have to stay up quite as late. Jim and Georgia, if you're still watching us, you won't have to stay up quite as late to watch the show next week. We will be moving to 9 p.m. and then we'll stay at the 9 p.m. slot the rest of September. Looks like we've got a call here. Let me see if I can take this. Go ahead, caller. What's your name and what's your question for our panelists?
Oh, hello. My name is Sammy, and I'm calling from Cambridge, Massachusetts. It's actually a reference to something that a previous caller said. It's kind of been sticking in my craw. It was that guy Malcolm, or whatever his name was, from England. He said something about Americans don't turn the water on when they take a bath. Well, I'd like to take exception to that because I'll tell you right now, I definitely turn the water on when I take a bath, and I don't need some whiny telling me that I don't, because he's never seen me take a bath, number one. And number two, if he wanted to see me take a bath, there's no way I would let him. So that's number two.
Yes.
I mean, am I the only one who was pissed off by that?
There was some confusion about Holly's inspiration for her novel.
No. We can blame that all on Clemenza.
Well, I haven't yet read Clemenza. It sounds like a fantastic book. Just because he likes it, that doesn't mean it's bad. But the thing about taking a bath, I'm sorry, I couldn't sit still and listen to that. Anyway, I'm gonna let you go now. Thanks for letting me air my grievance there, and terrific show. Great work. Thanks a lot.
Thank you for calling in, Sammy.
Thank you.
Yeah, Holly, you might want to re-explain the inspiration for your story. I think it got kind of miscommunicated a little bit there.
I can just blame everything on the dog from now on. Poor little thing.
Well,
she's sick now too, of course.
Oh no.
I know.
Oh, it looks like we've got another caller. I bet this is a rebuttal from the last one. Hold on just a minute, caller. I'll take your call in just a moment. I kind of want to keep the questions rolling here with our panelists a little bit, but I will take as many calls as I can in the hour. So there was speaking of controversy, there was a bit of controversy that broke out earlier today on Publishers Weekly, and it started with a very nicely written article on this fella Henry Baum, who operates a self-publishing company called Backwards. And apparently a Publishers Weekly editor who has her own blog really just kind of wrote a very critical, if not just downright mean-spirited blog post on the Publishers Weekly site, and it just completely fired up a bunch of self-published authors. And so, I think at its core, it sort of brings up this question of which is more legitimate, traditional publishing or self-publishing. So for our audience out there, what advice do you guys give to aspiring writers regarding whether to self-publish or traditionally publish. And RJ, why don't you get us started there, since you know the articles as well as anybody?
Well, I think it's definitely a personal thing. I don't think self-publishing is for everybody. That's for certain. It's definitely a hard road, and I mean, personally, I am very happy that I self-published. It's working out really well for me. I think the problem with the blog article in general was the blogger had taken a couple of Henry's quotes out of context and was sort of using them to berate self-publishers or self-published authors in general, which I think is sort of what stuck in my craw. I mean, I suppose there are some definite legitimate complaints about a lot of self-published books. There's a lot of, people who don't take quality in editing, seriously, and that unfortunately, gives us all, a bad rap because of it. And I suppose if she had maybe focused on that or something, of a more legitimate complaint rather than sort of what she did, I might have had a little more maybe respect or sympathy or whatever for the article in general. But again, I'm sorry, I sort of strayed. But as far as recommending it, it's a lot of work. I don't know that it's necessarily more work. I don't want to, berate traditionally published authors. Obviously, they work hard as well. But it's definitely, you're going to have to really be focused on marketing as well as writing, I think, in probably a way that traditionally published authors don't necessarily have to really think about or worry about. So it's not just about the writing. You're really in it for everything, and it really is a long haul. So anyone who's thinking about doing it should really think seriously about how much time and energy and sometimes even money that you're willing and able to put into it.
Yeah, this blog post, for anybody out there watching who wants to look it up, was titled "I Don't Want to Hate Self-Publishers." And in her article, she writes, quote, "Self-published authors make her want to cringe." Jamie Lynn, how do you respond to somebody who has that kind of attitude when you're a self-published author?
All I can say is they are completely dismissing some very, very talented writers out there. And I think you can see that in the fact with Amazon starting their Encore program. They recognize the fact that self-published authors have a very, very hard road, and even though they may be getting some really great reviews, because there is such, a hard road as far as marketing and promoting your book in order to generate sales, they recognize that need, that there are some really great authors overlooked out there that they want to put their marketing power behind support, and I think that's great. I just think by dismissing something completely out of hand simply because they chose to self-publish, it's just really stupidity on their part.
And a lot of the responses on her blog have kind of echoed that sentiment, calling her ignorant and elitist and any number of other things. I think a big part of the problem was just this idea, and she writes about it in her blog, that how dare anybody think that they can self-publish a book and do well with it. And the idea, as she writes, it literally, she writes, self-published authors make her want to cringe. And probably complicating the matter is that she's got this blog on the Publishers Weekly site, although it's not officially endorsed by Publishers Weekly. That should be stated, that she is not officially endorsed by Publishers Weekly. It comes across as though she is writing for Publishers Weekly when she responds like that. Holly, how does that make you feel when you hear somebody who is an established authority at a magazine like Publishers Weekly say, quote, self-published authors make her want to cringe?
Well, it makes me cringe. I mean, I just don't know. I've never been one to pass judgment so easily. I mean, you have to give, that's just like a way of life. I mean, I think that there are there are writers and there are editors. And I think that writers look at language differently than editors do, obviously.
Yeah.
And I mean, myself, I took copy editing courses in college, but I was more, practically obsessed with, the beauty of language and how it made me feel. And not so much caught up on, it's important. The grammar is very important. Without it, we wouldn't be able to understand each other. We wouldn't be able to understand written language without rules and guidelines. But to completely downplay something that someone has spent so much time on, and it doesn't matter if it's garbage. That's not the point. You just don't take an entire group of people, and I think Lulu has up on its website that every 75 seconds a new project is born on Lulu. So all of these people are getting involved in print on demand. So you're offending an entire group of people. So, I don't believe in judging people that way, and I don't believe more so in burning bridges like that, we're all in the same boat, whether it's self-published or not. What matters most is do readers like it? Do readers enjoy your writing? And that's the bottom line, and that's what's completely missed in judging someone based upon self-publishing. And I'm not just saying that because I self-published, because I did originally attempt the traditional route, but I find this rewarding that I'm able to see what readers think of my work, and that's what matters most,
I think
just throwing something like that out there is just it's judgmental, and I think whenever you do that, you're really just making yourself look kind of judgmental.
Yeah, and the responses, I at one point I thought I would read through some of the responses, but I don't think I'll even give it that much credit here on the show. We're just absolutely, unanimous in their consensus of kind of just the rudeness of her blog. But it made me wonder once again, is this idea and our audience for these shows and for this interview really is aspiring writers, publishing professionals. It made me wonder again, is it just a myth that traditional publishing is a better way to go? Is this some sort of myth that we've perpetuated? What do you guys think about that?
Well, my opinion, it really isn't, because it just becomes such a convoluted process that they can't even read through their inbox, to discover new and inspiring writers. They're just going with those established authors who crank out a new book every year, that are guaranteed sellers. And, in fact, just the fact that as a self-published author, they have such ties with the wholesalers, the traditional publishing houses and bookstores and all of that do. I can't even get my book on the bookshelves at a local bookstore because, oh no, we don't use the wholesaler that you sell through. It's really convoluted, and in my opinion, it's become a completely antiquated system that is not going to work in the future.
Well, I tend to agree. I think that the business model that's there is just, like you said, Jamie Lynn, the process for acquiring new talent is just so convoluted, is the word you use, and I think it's a perfect word. You've got writers like yourself, like Holly here, and RJ, who are outstanding authors who have found a readership who clearly wants to read your books. And yet, trying to get a literary agent or something, published traditionally is just, it is exceedingly difficult. And I almost wonder if it's just kind of a myth that it's actually a better way to go. But, go ahead.
You can't even submit your manuscript at this point to a traditional publisher without it being presented to them for you by an agent. So, that's eliminated half your, avenues right there in trying to actually get
an agent to take the time to read your query letter. So that's eliminated the whole loop for you in that effect.
If you look at it from like the business side of things, though, you mean like it does make sense, obviously, for traditional publishers to just pick up the things that they know that will sell quickly, maybe with as little marketing as possible. Like that's what will make money. But if you look at it from like an artistic point of view, then you're really, you're limiting what readers are getting, and you're limiting the like all of the beautiful work that people have created. You're just kind of missing out on so much more. We don't need to read the same story over and over and over again.
Exactly.
It would be nice to get something new and refreshing and a completely different viewpoint, and that's where print on demand comes in.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think, I think publishers can construct a better business model. I think they really need to, or they're not going to survive another 20 or 30 or 40 years. And
absolutely.
You guys heard it here tonight. This has been my message for years. And I know folks disagree with it, but I believe that the publisher who finds the best platform and business model to find undiscovered talent and nurture that talent into successful novelists, the publisher that's able to build a business model that can do that will be the publisher that will succeed in the long run. Because the name of the game is finding authors who readers want to read. And I think what we've seen with all of your work is that readers want to read your work. You've sold several thousand copies in a couple of cases, and yet you don't have agents knocking on your door, and you probably should. That said, I want to kind of lighten things up a little bit here in the last few minutes and remind folks they can call in. The number to call in is 914-803-4571. If you want to have a moment to chat with our panelists here, feel free to call in. So on a lighter note, if you had a movie made of your book, what actors do you see playing the lead roles? Jamie Lynn, why don't you take that?
Isla Fisher, no doubt. She would be perfect for the heroine in my book.
I'm sorry, who was the actor?
Isla Fisher.
I don't know that actor.
Oh my gosh, definitely maybe. She's red-haired, Scottish girl. But gosh, what else? Recently she was in Confessions of a Shopaholic.
Oh.
She's been in several things besides that. But yeah,
she was a 40-year-old virgin.
I think she was actually. She was, yeah. Yeah.
So how about you, Holly? Who would you see playing the roles in the 9 Lives of Clemenza?
I would totally hire my dog. But it would have to be like an animated film in order for it to work.
Yeah.
I mean, I've thought about it, but I mean, like, Clemenza starts out as a ball of energy, and like, who are you really going to get to play God? Like, you know what I mean? Like, how are you going to be like, yeah, we're writing a script, we need someone to play God, you know? But I always pictured it because Clemenza dies at the end of every single chapter, and she has a couple of darker lives. You know, like it's not like a really, really happy story, although there's a lot of meaning behind everything. I mean, our lives aren't perfect by any means, but I always pictured it kind of like a Tim Burton kind of twist on and you know, a little bit darker because, I mean, she's cancer in one of her lives, so, yeah, I picture that.
Yeah. Tim Burton, if you're out there.
Hello.
Feel free to call us tonight, Tim Burton. Our number is 914-803-4571. RJ, how about you? Who would play Tess?
Kate Winslet. That is my dream.
I love her.
I love her to pieces. That would be my dream come true.
Very cool.
She's great.
Yeah, she is fantastic. Have you guys seen The Reader?
Oh, I love that.
She was amazing in that.
So is the reader porn?
What about?
Do you consider the reader porn?
I don't. But then, of course, anyone who's read Waiting for Spring knows that I probably wouldn't. Kind of scenes in my Bone novel, so I might not be the best judge of that.
I think it has a lot to do with intent. I think ultimately that's what it's all about.
Oh, absolutely. It definitely forwards. It's necessary. It forwards the plot in the reader, and I would like to think in my own book as well. Character development is everything. Unless you're writing erotica, particularly for that, which there's nothing wrong with that either. But if you've got a sex scene or a number of them, it really does have to either forward the plot or for character development. And I think the reader is actually a really good example of that.
Well, we've got about 9 minutes left. I think that's a great point, RJ. We've got about 9 minutes left, and I'd like to ask you a little bit about how publishing on the Kindle has changed your view of audience, if at all. Has publishing your book on Kindle actually changed your view of who your audience is and how you write for that audience? Jamie Lynn, how would you answer that?
Wow, I hadn't really thought about it other than the fact I think my book has probably reached a wider variety of readers by being published on the Kindle than it would have just as a paperback. For one thing, I've noticed that most people who read on the Kindle actually go to the forums for book recommendations and don't necessarily go browsing through the books and looking at the covers and, making a judgment based on that. So I really and truly think it probably does, just from the fact that you're just basing your decision to buy or not on other people's comments about the book or on just looking at the text. It probably does increase the variety of your readership.
RJ, how about you? How has publishing Waiting for Spring on the Kindle and interacting with all the folks that you have to do to promote the book, how has that changed your perception of your audience?
I think it's basically reinforced what I always thought, is that the best way to market or to promote your books is directly to readers. I think when I started writing, I had this vague dream of becoming a published author and people reading my book, and in my imagination at that point, I always imagined that getting emails or being able to really interact directly with readers, and by doing it on the Kindle, it's even more direct than that. I mean, you can log on to the board and poof, you've got all these people who've read your book or who are interested in your book, and it's even more immediate and really amazing than I even had ever imagined.
How would you answer the question, Holly? Has it changed your perception of audience, and if so, how would your writing change as a result of that?
I don't think it's changed my perception of audience or my writing, but I would say it's changed, a big part. I think the hardest part for us is marketing, and it's changed the way that I look at marketing. Like with Kindle, it's just so immediate. Like you can see, you watch it, you post in a forum, and then you can go to the ETP platform, and you can see how many sales you got just from that one posting. You can see immediately what works and what isn't working. So it's not like, random paperback sales. You always kind of wonder, where they come from. You have no idea what date they were actually sold on, so you don't know what was working with that. So I think that, Kindle has changed the way I view marketing, and, especially now, just the immediate knowledge of just knowing what works and what doesn't has just helped me tremendously with marketing.
What things have worked that you have seen?
Mostly just posting and actually having a presence in the forums, and you guys know that we we all have a bit of a presence in the forums. But also, I think I made my book available it's on Goodreads, and there's an up-and-coming author section. And then what I did, I made a PDF of my book available right on my website for free, so that readers could read it right from my website. And just the immediacy of that, like readers like that too, and it's like instant feedback, just getting that instant feedback and actually having a connection with the readers is probably like one of the most awesome feelings in the world for a writer.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Jamie Lynn, what would you say? What kinds of things have you seen, if anything, beyond the forums themselves at Amazon, have helped contribute to awareness for your book and hopefully book sales?
Well, definitely maintaining an online presence on all of these social networking sites such as Facebook, MySpace, Twitter, keeping a blog, that really helps as well, because you pull in, not only your friends and family, but their friends and family and so on and so forth, and it just keeps building and building and building. And if you keep posting, hey, I'm on this site and I'm on this site, then they just follow the trail that you place before them, which eventually, leads to your own website or, which then has a link to your book. And so definitely maintaining an online presence everywhere is just huge impact.
Very cool. We're coming down to our last 3 minutes here on tonight's show. I want to remind viewers who are watching or are watching later, as the recorded version will go online, that next week's show is going to be at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, not the 11 p.m. slot. We managed to find a cushy spot at 9 p.m. for the next few weeks. So if you want to tune in next week, feel free to check us out at 9 p.m. live here at Ustream on our channel Book Chatter. We've been working a little bit on trying to bring up co-host features so it wouldn't just be my mug that you're seeing here, but we could get everybody else's screen up on the screen as well. We'll keep working on that to improve the technology as much as we can. Anything that's kind of stuck out in this conversation that you think we should kind of wrap things up with? Anything at all?
Okay, I have a question.
Go ahead.
For those of you who have Kindles or whatever e-reader you may have and you've been reading, we hear a lot about the tactile sensation of actually holding a book and smelling the book and so on and so forth. Have you actually reached out and tried to turn the page on your e-reader?
I don't have.
I have.
That's funny.
I have. So I do it all the time. So I think you can truly lose yourself in the e-reader just as well as you can in the the regular paperback or hardback.
Oh, I think that's a really funny point. For folks out there who are watching and are interested in checking out a Kindle, they are pretty expensive. I was able to check out one from the university library where I teach, and they, you might have something like that in your community as well, where you can actually check out a Kindle and try it out. I can't say that I actually tried to turn the page, but what I can say is that in about 1 week I downloaded about 24 books. So
yeah.
It's very it's very addictive.
It is.
Well, what I'd like to do for next week is maybe try to develop a couple of stories. You guys did a great job, RJ, of coming up with some good stuff for us to chat about tonight. How do you guys feel about developing stories kind of the way that we did for tonight's show, Holly and RJ, for next week's show?
That sounds great.
Yes, it does.
I think it's just a matter.
60 seconds.
I'm being told.
I've got a couple ideas.
I'm being told we're down to our last 50 seconds here. Well, what one piece of advice? We've got a few viewers online here. We've had 55 total in our hour, so that's not too shabby. What final advice would you give to the aspiring writers out there, Jamie Lynn?
Just write, and don't let anybody tell you that you can't be published, because anybody can now.
And RJ?
Listen to your voice and be true to it. Don't try to write for the market. Just really follow your voice.
Very cool. Well, Holly, I'd ask for your advice, but we are down to our last 12 seconds.
10 seconds.
For everybody who has been watching, this is Book Chatter. I am your host, Stacy Cochran. I encourage you to check out Holly Christine, R.J. Keller, and Jamie Lynn Brazel's books at Amazon.com. I'll email our panelists offline to say thank you for the night. And I just want to thank everybody for tuning in. Have a great night and great week, and happy writing. Good night, everybody.
Good night.